Welcome to TechZine TV.
Welcome to TechZine TV. We're here at Nutanix Cloud Day in Zeist, and we're here with the CTO of Nutanix, Manosiz Bhattacharyya.
Yeah, that's good.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Good to be here.
I want to talk to you about where Nutanix is coming from and where it's going towards, because a lot has happened over the years, and the industry where you're in is very dynamic at the moment. Let's call it that, because there's a lot going on. A lot of companies are looking for VMware alternatives now, where you kind of come in as one of the major players. But let's first start where your roots lie, because it's basically in hyperconverged infrastructure. That's kind of where it all started, right?
Yeah, but I think our roots really lie in software-defined infrastructure. So I think the hyperconverged infrastructure was a form factor in which we actually could differentiate software-defined data centers. But for us, the real value that we provided was providing infrastructure as software on commodity hardware. Because if you think of what the public clouds did, that's how they differentiated, right? When you went to Google, when you went to Yahoo, at that point, you wouldn't see three-tier architecture actually running the clouds. They were running all with commodity hardware, with software as infrastructure. That was the root of Nutanix, is building infrastructure as software and deploying on commodity hardware.
Yeah, and now expanding that more and more. You're going off your own hardware, you're going to the cloud, you're adding Pure Storage, I saw, and you're adding Dell storage. So it's getting a bit wider.
Yes, and that's always been our motto, right? From our beginning, the idea was to give customer more choices.
Yeah.
When we started off, the main choice that we gave was in the hypervisor. We giving both our solution on VMware as well as Nutanix AHV. We gave that same thing in the public clouds. Like, for example, we gave you the whole Nutanix stack on AWS, Azure, and now GCP. And we believe in that just the flexibility of our platform, we can plug and play the components that we want. Like, because it's software, we can actually remove a component and add a component as long as they fit into our API model. So to us, this was work. It's not easy, but it was not hard to actually add three-tier storage on our platform. It's just that we never did it before because we never had a market for it. But now we do, and we definitely want to entertain that and make sure that we are successful in the three-tier market too.
But you also have your own storage. How does that compare to the storage of third parties then?
So for us, we believe, again, we believe in the right choice for the customer. There will be use cases where HCI will be, applicable for them. There will be use cases where they are not. From our perspective, we always believe that our storage can run all types of applications. We have people who are running large databases on us, analytic systems on us, and even today with some of the qualifications that we have done with NVIDIA, even AI workloads on us. So we are very confident of our storage, but at the same time, we want to give the flexibility to our customers. So it's all about customers' choice, and we are ready to help in whatever way we can. Now, of course, this comes at, the choice is not just a simple choice, because there is a cost to it, there's a support cost to it. Because one thing that we cannot do when we use third-party storage is we cannot support that product. So depending on the customer's awareness, the customer's familiarity with the products, they might choose to go with us and get one throat to choke so that we have one end-to-end product that we can support. Or they can, take piecemeal for us and we will support the components that we own and then basically hand over the support to the others. Like, for example, when we had issues with VMware, we would call up VMware. Now, the same thing would happen with three-tier. If something happens with Pure Storage and we see an issue with the storage, we will call up the three-tier storage.
Okay. But in the end, it's all about what you're moving now toward. It's running all your applications on the Nutanix platform or the underlying OS.
That's a good point, because if you look at the cloud operating model, right? Cloud operating model is all about the experience of a application deployment, development, making sure you can operate with alerts and metrics. We provide that even with three-tier storage. So the experience from the application provider would look exactly the same way. For example, when you do self-service will deploy it on our AHV running pure would exactly be the same on on HCI. So it really doesn't matter from the higher level constructs, like when you're talking of Nutanix Cloud Manager deploying applications or looking at application metrics. But at the lower level, if something breaks, then the support model will look a little different.
Does it help Nutanix a lot to partner with Cisco and Pure Storage and Dell to bring your product to market as well? Then?
Absolutely, because we feel that at the end of the day, the more partners we have, the more avenues we have to market. From a Cisco perspective, it has been extremely good, because from the perspective of HCI, also Cisco gave up their HCI offering, which was their Hyperflex product. So now the Hyperflex is completely discontinued, and in fact, they sold the Hyperflex team or the product to us. In some ways, we now support the Hyperflex product. So basically, the entire Hyperflex team is now moved into Nutanix. I shouldn't use the word sold, really. It was just a transaction that we did where the people moved over.
And you're converting those to Nutanix then?
We are trying to move them as they upgrade, right? So because what Cisco has also done is they've discontinued the product. There will not be any upgrades to Hyperflex anymore. So any customer who wants to upgrade naturally would want to move over to Nutanix.
Yeah. And what we kind of basically talked about now is what you can do on premises, but you also have a large cloud product. You just already named it. You can run Nutanix on Azure, on AWS, and Google. You do everything from a single control plane.
Yes.
And it's easy to move things around.
Yes.
Is that a necessity for most customers to move things around between clouds? Because in an ideal world it is, but in practice it usually isn't that much used.
It is rare, you're right, because most people do use multiple clouds, but moving workloads across cloud has been difficult. The main reason actually is not the choice, but the main reason is the egress cost that the clouds have put to actually migrate their data from one cloud to the other. But what we really believe is it's not just moving, it's the operations, right? If I want to run something in Google and I want to run something in Amazon, if I have to learn new ways of doing things, if imagine my network model would look different, my application and VM APIs would look different, it becomes more complex for the enterprise. What we say is even if you don't move, the operating model being the same helps in from a perspective of an enterprise simplicity, posture, from the perspective of personnel. For example, you have to train less people, because if you train them on Nutanix, Nutanix makes sure that it is the same operating model between the clouds. So you're right in the sense we see very little migration, but we still see benefits in the customers using one way of doing things across multiple clouds.
Yeah. And I think where it sometimes becomes a bit difficult for some of your customers is you had the Nutanix platform with the hypervisor, and you moved that towards the clouds. And then you started Project Beacon, where you kind of took away your own hypervisor and you land your products on the native hyperscale platforms.
Yes. But remember, for this, we are targeting the cloud native area. So if you think of two types of applications, you'll get the NC2 and the cloud native very clearly. If you look at NC2, NC2 was designed primarily for taking enterprise applications to the public cloud. This is something where you can think about when you go to the public cloud, one thing you miss out in cloud native is the resilience of the infrastructure. And if you go to the cloud, the whole paradigm is resilience has to be brought in the application layer. So people taking a lift and shift approach from taking a application on-prem to the application in the cloud rarely works. So they call it refactoring the application. But what means by refactoring the application means that you are taking the resilience that was given to the infrastructure and bringing it to the application tiers. And that's a very expensive proposition. What we allow with NC2 is now give you that resiliency back in the public cloud. Now you can do things like vMotion, you can do things like stretch replication, near sync, all of the disaster recovery mechanisms that's required to run an enterprise application, which is not by itself resilient. It kind of depends on the resiliency of the infrastructure, and run it in the public cloud. So it helped the migration and lift and shift of enterprise application to the public cloud. What we are doing in cloud native is inverse. The idea is that, hey, if you're building in the public cloud, you're probably already using containers. You're already using, all the hyperscaler constructs. The application is mobile. But the point is the data is not mobile. What happens is With the Kubernetes and containers, what we have done is we have made the portability of the compute constructs. But the data that container is using in the public cloud has no way to get out of the public cloud or no way to actually be consistently consumed by the public cloud. And the way I make consistent is, for example, if I'm using EBS, which is the block storage in AWS, or I'm doing persistent disk in Google, the snapshot frequency, disaster recovery capabilities in persistent disk and EBS are vastly different.
Okay.
Now, if I want to create a policy saying that I want this resilience for my data, I cannot give it unless I plug in a layer which can provide that. So what CNOS is giving is consistent storage functions across public clouds. And because it is completely container native, it can be deployed in bare metal too. And there, when we go to bare metal and clouds, what you can understand is we are now working across different Kubernetes substrates. Because in EK, like in AWS, we'll probably work with EKS. When you go to Google, we'll work with GKE. Or if we come on-prem, we can work with our own Kubernetes platform or even Red Hat OpenShift. So I think that same portability of the storage is now available across different cloud-native platforms.
So the cloud-native AOS is a Kubernetes service?
Yes, absolutely a Kubernetes service that can be deployed in any Kubernetes cluster, whether it is running, in the public cloud, in different public cloud,
and
or in bare
run it on a Kubernetes engine if it's for bare metal, but you run it next to it or close to it.
We run as a container right inside it. So in the worker node, we can deploy a AOS pod, which basically maps all the disks that is mapped to the local nodes. And then what we do is we create the same storage cluster as we did with HCI in virtualization. Now we can create an HCI in container bare metal world.
And everything is still managed from one single Nutanix control plane.
Correct.
Okay. So basically what you're now doing with Project Beacon in the cloud native AOS is for
the modern application.
Modern cloud-based
applications.
Micro-segmented applications.
Microservices.
Microservices.
Based application.
And the previous one was for the
more enterprise applications.
Yeah, and the VMs and the bigger.
So typically NC2, we target VMs.
Yeah.
CNOS and all the Project Beacon that we are targeting is the cloud native applications. Is basically we want the new generation applications to be absolutely portable along with their data. Because containerization already makes it very portable. But only what you have made portable is the compute part. You did not make the data part portable. So now with this, you can get exactly the storage functions. Let's say I want to run a Postgres container native. That Postgres can have the same snapshot frequency, the same replication, all of that across all clouds or in bare metal. And that, I think, is a very true differentiator.
But within Beacon, you also do database services, for example.
Correct. And database services is expanding to that. So the thing that I talked about in the keynote, right? So we now run all of the databases that we support the database service from virtual machines. But it can be available through containers. So we have Kubernetes operators which can actually go and access the database. What we are now building is the ability to deploy and manage Kubernetes native databases. So if you see the generation of databases, the older databases like Microsoft SQL Server or Oracle, they will probably not get containerized. But if you look at the modern cloud native databases, they're all getting containerized. And now once you have stateful data applications, we need to make sure that their resilience, their copy data management, their patching in the container world can also be done from the same NDB control plane as we did it for virtual machines.
And which database do you currently support for the Kubernetes one?
So at this moment, we don't actually, but we have it in our roadmap to support things like Mongo, Postgres. We want to do things on the caching side with Redis. We're also thinking of on the search with Elastic. So the plan is to add more and more data services. But beyond relational databases, we think the logical step is to go into containers because all the modern databases are all getting released in the container world. And we want to focus on that for the modern generation of databases.
I think for modern organization stacks, that's a good thing.
Yes.
But I do think a lot of your customers are still a bit back in the VM days.
Absolutely. In fact, I think even if you look at IDC, the last thing, I don't remember the exact number, but it was close to 80% of workloads are still on VMs. But it's growing very fast. So the point is, containers, I think, are projected to be 50% in 2030. So that's like, because the rate at which because the VMs have saturated, there is no growth in new workloads coming in VMs. So
no, but there are still millions of them.
No, there are millions, but there are no new workloads.
No, okay.
So all the new workloads that are coming are all containers. So the inflection will happen in the next 5 to 6 years.
But there are a lot of customers that are, for example, on VMware and looking for alternatives, and that they are looking at migration paths, which can be very complex. I spoke to several of your customers and about Nutanix Move. You also highlighted it in your keynote. You made it pretty simple to move a VM to Nutanix. What I learned from your customers is for most workloads, it will work just fine. There are some specialized workloads where you used very advanced VMware functions that it might be a bit more difficult. I learned, for example, that I believe a Cisco phone server or something, that didn't quite work well, but there are templates for that to fix that. How are you looking at the Nutanix Move? Because you also mentioned you're now even transferring firewall rules
from NSX to Flow.
So is that still a product under development?
Yes.
Nutanix Move?
Yes. No, Nutanix Move is absolutely a product in development with active features getting onto it every day. Okay. And we are trying to take the whole ecosystem and making it more automated. But frankly, if you think of a VMware migration for a bigger enterprise should be planned well. It's not something that you can trivially set a button and move, right? Because
it's not a 2-week process.
Because typically what happens with any VMware migration is there are business processes around it. It's not just VMware, right? You will probably have ServiceNow ticketing. There'll be some business process where there might be some accounting information, and all of that is tied into the business process of IT, because IT is not just technology, right? There is a whole process of governing IT. So when you do a migration, we have to take into account of all of that so that the IT operations, governance, everything can tie into it. So most of our VMware migration is a very planned process. We don't just ad hoc say move allows you to move the migration of the core VMs, but it does not migrate the processes, right? So those you need to actually make sure that you actually do it with proper planning. So we engage with the customer. We make sure that we have a proper plan for them so that we understand what the whole migration will take, and then engage and make that happen. Sometimes we will also engage services as part of that, because it is not just a push button thing. That's a fact, because there is a fact of technology and the fact of the business processes. The technology can be made push button. The processes cannot.
No, but I did learn that you can move high numbers of VMs in a short amount of time.
Yes, we can.
Because you say it's about business process, but it's not a fully manual process either. To move your
so there
VM
are two things, right? Once you have planned it, let's say there are ticketing processes with ServiceNow. That has to be planned and made sure that the ServiceNow integration is done. But migrating a VM is very easy. That we have made it with Move. So what Move does is the core technology migration is easy, but the entire process requires, like for example, if I've automated with vRealize, I need to make a similar amount of automation against Nutanix. That Move cannot do. So there are pieces that we make very simple. There are pieces we engage with the customer to make it work for them.
Okay. You also touched a bit on sovereign cloud without calling it sovereign cloud, I noticed. Is there a reason for that, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, sovereign clouds are very important now with the geopolitical issues that are happening. People want to keep independence of their compute and data, particularly because, specifically I see this in Europe and Asia. America's less so, but people do want to actually, not use the public cloud for all their needs, because they want to actually make sure that, the local geography has, the full control over their data and compute. So that's one of the businesses that we see strongly growing, not only among the government sector, but we also see a lot of private sector companies building their own clouds, basically building their own data computer, not relying at all on the public cloud, or relying, I would say, partially on the public cloud. So
yeah, and you said later this year you're coming with air-gapped solutions as well?
We have air-gapped solutions.
Oh, you already have them?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the thing that we are doing is we had some solutions. So basically a solution consists of air-gapped pieces and some which were delivered as a SaaS product. What we are doing is end of the year making all of the SaaS products also available in air-gapped. Now, if you use the air-gapped version of Nutanix, you do not have access to those.
No.
But what we are doing is making sure that they can run on the Nutanix air-gapped mode.
And when it's air-gapped, Nutanix can touch it then?
Yes, then that is your own, those same services like Nutanix Central today, the thing that I was talking about where you can merge a lot of the Prism Central operations in a central way, that today is a SaaS service. But what we are doing is we are going to bring this on-prem. We have things like Nutanix Data Lens, which is basically doing things like ransomware detection for our files and objects. That we will bring on-prem. So there are a few of these SaaS services that we already have, which will now be brought on-prem, and then now you can develop in a completely air-gapped fashion.
Okay. Do you think you are an alternative for only the bigger VMware customers, or also the ones that just run vSphere?
We are for all types of customers. See, the point with Nutanix is we are a very configurable platform. You can choose pieces of our software and then use it whenever, in any way you want. So we have customers of all sizes, all the way from people us using with 4-node clusters to people who have thousands of clusters. I mean, thousands of nodes, not thousands of clusters, but thousands of nodes that are running Nutanix. So between customers who are running few nodes to we have like a whole gamut of customers. So I don't see us at all being targeted only for one segment of the market. We can actually address the entire market that VMware will leave behind.
Just to finalize, we didn't touch much on AI, but you're developing a whole portfolio there as well. There's also the bit where AI is taking over infrastructure management in some cases. You see it with smart switches at Cisco and HP Aruba, for example. Nutanix has always been about simplicity, to make processes simple and management simple. Do you see a wall of AI to make it even more simple?
Absolutely. In fact, one other thing I was talking about today is the evolution of the Nutanix interface, right? You see the interface for us initially had been very UI driven. It was very graphical and all that. But very soon, what we realized with large-scale customers, graphical interface is not the right interface to operate Nutanix. The best way to operate Nutanix is through APIs with dashboards which are independent. That's why we created the NCM product, so that you can actually manage large scale of infrastructure. Now we see the next evolution is to bring agentic systems into Nutanix management, so that, for example, you can actually tell this agent, hey, I want to deploy this kind of infrastructure. I want to upgrade this kind of infrastructure. I can say, look for alerts of this type. Like if there, so basically you provide AI with what you want and let the agent go figure it out, as opposed to orchestrate and operate because today, if you see, most of the APIs and orchestration that is done is by code, right? People are writing a ton of code to do that. And we don't want them to write code. They should just tell it, and AI should be able to write that code. AI should be able to function on their behalf. AI should be able to look at the same state and see, oh, my CPU is bursting up. Can I pick an alert? Should I auto scale this? So a lot of these things which were rule based, which was automated through a lot of code, can actually be now done through AI. And this is exactly what all the infrastructure companies are trying to do, is bring agentic systems into their management stack and operations.
But this is future, right? This is not ready yet.
Not ready yet, but this we are actively working on. So the thing is, what I always call is, one is NAI for the external customer, but that same NAI can be used in conjunction with our management products to give greater value.
Okay. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching TechSign TV. We'll be back with another video very short.
Thank you for watching TechScene TV, the channel about enterprise technology that brings you IT insights and analyses from events all around the globe. We cover everything, everywhere. Visit techscene.eu for more written in-depth articles and analysis, or keep watching techscene.tv. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels and share your favorite videos with your colleagues. We'll see you soon.